Once considered one of the shallower divisions in the UFC, the middleweight division has seen a dramatic increase in new talent and top contenders emerge in recent years. The next man to break into the ranks at 185 pounds and make a name for himself was a Dagestani fighter who had been touted for greatness, Ikram Aliskerov. A background in Combat Sambo, where he is a multiple-time world champion, has prepared Aliskerov for life as an MMA fighter, and his Sambo base has given him an excellent foundation, ensuring that he has a very well-rounded skill set. With him being touted for big things this past year, Aliskerov has yet to face a ranked opponent in the UFC but will get the chance to do so next February at UFC 298 when he faces number 15 ranked Anthony Hernandez. Let's examine Aliskerov's skills and see if it's all hype or if he actually has the skills to make a name for himself in MMA. As expected from a Dagestani fighter, Aliskerov has a solid grappling game. Very physically strong, Aliskerov can use his strength in tandem with excellent technique, as seen throughout his fights at Brave CF and various other promotions before signing with the UFC. With all of his fights in the organization thus far ending early in the first round, we have yet to see Aliskerov utilize his grappling against an established fighter in the organization. However, based on his past performances in these other organizations, we can conclude that he will likely be dominant against most of his opponents. While we haven't seen him wrestle in the UFC, we have seen him fight very high-quality opposition. Aliskerov faced Khamzat Chimaev in 2019 when both were early in their careers. While he would lose the fight via knockout in the first round, minutes before it was all hands on deck with Chimaev looking to take Aliskerov down. Chimaev couldn't beat his opponent for the only time in his career, with Aliskerov displaying world-class takedown defense. In addition to takedowns and wrestling sweeps, Aliskerov has shown that he is capable of offensive groundwork and submissions. A third of his wins come via submission, and he is one of the few fighters to have multiple wins via Kimura, a submission that is popular in BJJ but difficult to execute in MMA. Again, while we haven't seen him go for Kimura in the UFC, hope it happens eventually as it seems to be a recurring occurrence in Aliskerov's fights with him finishing Mario Souza, Miro Jurkovic and Denis Tiuliunin by submission and barely missing a finish against No Sean Burrell for Watt, which would be an unprecedented 4 fights in a row completed via Kimura. Aliskerov is undoubtedly worthy of at least some of the hype generated around him. While some criticized the attempt to match him with Paulo Costa, who was ranked number 5 at the time, all it said was that the UFC itself believed that Aliskerov was someone with enormous potential and that he was ready for a fighter who had a number next to their name. Ultimately, this would happen at UFC 298 as Aliskerov was paired with the aforementioned Costa and Nassourdine Imavov, who would ultimately fall short as well. The organization has big plans for Aliskerov, and if he delivers another dominant performance next February, don't be surprised to see him linked to some big fights later in the year.